Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is another episode of the Encompass podcast. I am your dynamic host, Mr. Pardon My Rude himself. And I know I started this episode off coming straight to me, no music, no beginning vibes, but that's for a good reason. I have a very special guest today. I have someone who is very qualified in his field. I often speak on my professional therapist friends. So I figured it was quite time that I bring one to the table to have a conversation. I try to give you all, my perspective and give you the best course of action to make yourself better. But at the same time, I want to bring a different voice, someone else who can provide a level of professional nature to the conversation. So at this time, you've heard him before on our Father's Day episode, but this will be a more dynamic and direct conversation between himself and I, the regional resident therapist, my good brother, Eric Anthony. Welcome, my brother.
Man, I appreciate you. And the best title I can have is a regional therapist for the LXI. But no, I appreciate you having, man. And I really think it's great what you're doing with diving into this mental wellness thing.
Well, appreciate you, man. So just to give everybody a brief overview and background, Eric and I go back to now, this is 25, so we're at least
We sitting,
18, 19 years.
yeah, we creeping up on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So, we have some time in together as far as building our friendship and our brotherhood. We are a part of that dynamic conglomerate that is
Yes,
the
sir.
LXI.
The
Yeah, to emphasize the, like Ohio State does, the Ohio State University. So the LXI. So we do know a bit about each other.
yeah.
Something many may not, well, some know, but many in my audience may not know. But Eric and I were roommates
Yo.
for about a year. Actually, it was more of a frat
Shout
house
out
than
1525, baby.
that 1525. It was more of a frat house
Yeah,
than a
yeah.
roommate situation. It was four of us living there, and oh, what a time!
What, man, listen. Memories.
What a time! We're not gonna dive down that
Nah,
wonderful
man.
space, but yeah,
Nah, I ain't gonna go down that one, man. Just those are things that just best experienced once and thought of every now and then.
exactly, and share very rarely.
Yes.
Although statute of limitations is probably expired on quite a few of the activities, if I
You
may
know,
say so myself.
well, you know what? No, it's fine.
So with this episode, as you see, this is going to be a little different. Um, the episode itself is the top segment. There will be no Encompass news this week. There will be no what Trump done did. Honestly, I need a break.
Ooh,
If you need a bit of information on that end, check out Pardon the Politics. I actually
absolutely.
joined the boys this week on this week's episode that dropped on Monday. So I did join them, and we touched on many different topics and things that are going on right now. So please, as I've implored you before, check out my brothers on Pardon the Politics, and you will also have the pleasure of having me join them this week.
Yeah.
But for Encompass, I brought my brother on so we can have a conversation about mental wellness
Yes,
versus
sir.
therapy.
Yes, sir.
And again, he is a licensed and credentialed professional. So he is an expert in his field. He went to school. He got paper behind his name to solidify what he's saying. On top of that, he works in the field, and so I want to bring my perspective on some things, but I really am going to allow him to carry this conversation so that I can get his professional viewpoint, his professional opinion on many different matters. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start off and I'm going to yield the floor to him before we really get into our interview setup and allow him to provide his own introduction.
Yeah, and I'll be brief, man, because I think the quality of our conversation is what folks came here for. But where the information's coming from doesn't hurt to know, right? In a world of misinformation. But graduated San Diego State with my master's in counseling, concentration, marriage and family therapy, in 2018. And since then, I've been doing a lot of moderate, severe, high acuity work. You name it. I've been working in first episodic breaks and psychosis for like schizophrenia and bipolar, and my internship going into juvenile detention center working with children and youth offenders with violent crimes and reintegration into the neighborhood. Worked in residential centers, and now more recently I'm in a mood and anxiety program, Compass Health Center in the adult wing, for partial hospitalization programs and intensive outpatient programs, meaning people that kind of get to the hospital for mental illness or mental situations, kind of getting back into the swing of things. This is kind of like a step into that. It's a 8 week to 10 week program, high intensity. We're dealing with a lot of things underneath the umbrella of mood and anxiety. So all that to say is, I do an awful lot of conversations about mental wellness within therapy, and there's definitely a line. I think that this conversation is great because folks can really learn how to engage in mental wellness, and it doesn't have to be this grandiose swift gesture. So, yeah, man, coming from a lot of experience, sat with a lot of folks. I've worked with children from ages 6 all the way up to my oldest patient is probably 60. So, all this applies to everybody.
So, as you all heard, the man is well versed in what he's talking about, and
Just a little bit.
he's not flying by the seat of his pants. What was very funny to me, and I was thinking about this as we uh, communicated about him joining the podcast, is when he first went to San Diego. In light of everything that's going on, if I'm not mistaken, you was pursuing a career with the Border Patrol, right?
Yeah, man. I graduated East Carolina criminal justice, and took the first thing smoking out to San Diego to be with Vince, my older brother, just to kind of try something new. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll criminal justice. I'll try border patrol, and got pretty far in the process, and ended up declining that because furlough came and the salary was weak as hell. And I was like, I'm not about to be out there going back and forth with y'all for 40K. So ended up just getting
Definitely.
into nonprofit programs and loving the work.
Yeah, man. So let's jump right into this. And my first question for you is, what drew you into the field of mental health, and how has your own understanding of wellness evolved since being in the field?
Yeah. I kind of I stumbled in mental health, like I said, working in nonprofits. However, I've always been like real intrigued by like what makes us tick, like what drives us, what is human
Mhm.
behavior, and like and how does that apply to the world, right? And how do I interact with that? Granted, how when I first thought about that thought, it did not sound like that. It was more like, why am I feeling like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do I feel like this, or why can't I do these things? And it's like, what do we do when we know things aren't good for us? And I thought about wellness in relation to that. Is It's not just about like fixing problems, right? It's
Yes.
over time, it's realizing less about fixing and brokenness and all this. It's more about building. And so building is to me is wellness. It's like building habits, building relationships, and honestly building like these environments that help you
Hmm.
stay well before you break down. And that's really what I think of when I think of wellness, right?
Yeah.
I think of just like sustainability.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I completely agree. Um, as we talk about here on the podcast, challenging your thought process
Hmm.
in what you
Yeah.
thought things were. Then
Hmm.
once you challenge it, we're going to reframe it and
Yes.
work
Yes.
to improve. But then on the back end, you got to continue that thing.
Yeah.
Just playing around with it to do all this and let it go astray to get you back to square one is not the goal. So I completely agree with you there. So
I,
something that I do here. Oh, go
mhm.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was gonna say you hit a really good point. I want to touch on is kind of saying like wellness is this soil, right?
Hmm.
And therapy or seeds, if you will. You're
Gotcha.
talking about this, you can do all the reframing and all the cognitive skills that are very helpful. And if you're doing it from bad soil, soil that
Mm.
you haven't even taken time to really enrich or tend to, it can only be so much to who you really are.
Oh, yes,
There's this,
sir.
it's it's the power of and, right? I think I speak from DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, and CBT, cognitive behavior therapy.
Hmm.
What you're speaking to is definitely CBT, right? How our thoughts influence our behaviors and actions. I'm coming to you from DBT with the power of acceptance and change, right? Like two things can be correct at the same time. And when you're able to open up that space, that's when you can tend to both of these fields independently, because that's what the respect is to them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that man, and as the church folks say, that could preach. You got to till that field. You got to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that that soil is right, because
Mm-hmm.
you're just dropping a seed out there, and it's not, in the soil properly. The sun is going to scorch it up.
Yep. And
So
yeah.
whew, that was a big one. All right, so something that we do here on the pod, and is that words have meaning. And so for me, I like to provide the definition of words before we really dive into uh, the subject matter. So I want to start with mental wellness. And according to, who is this by? I don't know. I did a Google search on
Go
the
for it.
term mental wellness, and essentially it gave me mental wellness refers to a state of psychological, emotional, and social well being
Mm-hmm.
characterized by the ability to cope with life's challenges, experience positive emotions, and build fulfilling relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And now we move on to therapy. And therapy is a treatment that aims to help individuals address emotional distress, mental health challenges, and improve overall well being. So, with those defined terms, um, in your simplest capacity, um, what are your definitions of mental wellness versus therapy, or they
And
pretty much align with
yeah,
what I said?
it aligns in simpler terms. One is change work and one is sustain work,
Oh, yeah, I
right?
like that. I like
You
that.
know, you got change work, you got sustain work. Both are equally important. And you got to recognize what's what, right? And be able to kind of put that in perspective. And, when you're thinking about change work, we're talking about this taking care of mind, body, or not mind, body, but the individual identity work. Right? And that's what therapy really is, right? You're making this change because you're finding yourself in, depressive cycles, or there's some detachment going on, or you're not finding fulfillment in life, where we're thinking about this sustainability work and this, wellness part. And that's where we're talking to like tending to that soil or that daily breathing, if you will.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of like the simplest put. One's sustain work and one's change work. Are we changing an identity, or are we just trying to sustain something?
got you. So, from your expert opinion, and like you said, you've spoken with and worked with individuals from 6 to 60. Why do
Hmm.
you think so many people confuse self care and mental wellness with therapy?
So many reasons. I think that there's not enough language that folks have to identify between the two. And I think the one thing you think of is they both make you feel better in the short term. Difference care, self
I
care, or
got you.
well, what I mean, like self care might relax you,
Hmm.
right? And therapy might make you feel like you're talking things, but like therapy changes you, and people tend to blur the two. I think because they both use the same language, like kind of what I was hitting to earlier, like healing and growth and peace. So folks are kind of like, we live in a very absolute world and catch all kind of things, so we just kind of junk it all together.
Gotcha. So essentially, if we are looking from a standpoint of an analogy, you would say mental wellness is kind of like the gym, and therapy is the physical therapist.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually, I really do like that. I even go and say, if wellness is like hitting the gym, right?
Hmm.
Therapy is like working with a trainer, but it's also
Yes,
like who understands your unique injuries and strengths,
gotcha.
right? The trainer knows, the therapist knows when to push you harder, when to
Hmm.
rest, when to try a totally different approach or workout, right? And it's like without that insight, you're out here working hard as hell and you're not actually getting stronger where it counts.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. You hit the gym, I go to the gym all the time, but I can't, I plateaued. But you're
Mm-hmm.
working with a trainer, and that trainer was like, okay, we got to change our calisthenics. We got to incorporate this, remove some of that. So that makes a lot of sense. Excuse me. So, with that, what is a sign someone can address in regards to if their wellness practices are effective And, those signals that they may come across that, I do my affirmations, I do, my self care things, but something is just not clicking for me. Like, what are some of these signs that they can look for so that they can help themselves understand maybe I need to go a different route?
Like, we're saying more like, how do I, if I'm doing this wellness thing, right, I'm consistent, and I'm doing my breathing and my woosahs, and I still kind of wake up in this like lull, and these episodes or these wells and these valleys and peaks are just not stopping. It's like, what do I do?
Yes.
I think that's when you
Well,
consider, yeah, go ahead.
okay, go ahead. No,
Yeah,
because I
I think
was going to say that.
Uh, Yeah, I think that's when you need to start considering professional therapy, and really talking to somebody. It's kind of like, let's put it in something that people can actually grab and attach to, like physical health, right? If you have a
Hmm.
couple coughs and you take like some cough medicine, you're good. You're not going to go to your doctor. And at the
Yeah,
same token, if you're out here every night coughing up a lung, you need to go see your doctor. It's beyond your wellness practices. And you
got
have
you.
to have vulnerability with yourself and honesty to go, okay, I need to be vulnerable and go see somebody who can speak on this.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Um, it's like the over the counter medicine says, if you've taken this for more than 3 days and that cough has persisted,
Yes, go see a damn doctor, and that's for real, right? And it's saying like, listen, like this is not meant to be long-term work, and what you're dealing with
yes,
might be long-term stuff. You might
got
need
you.
a
Yeah,
steroid. You might need to go sit down somewhere for a couple of days.
exactly. You might need to get a chest CT and look in there
Yeah.
and see what's going on. So, okay, I'm with
And,
you.
and,
I'm
and
with
here's
you.
the thing. And here's the thing with it, Chuck. And this is the rub: is with people is when they come to that part, they won't seek therapy because that's real wild to look behind that curtain. Because
The same reason why they don't go to the doctor.
absolutely, because now, I'm gonna dance with the devil I know.
Yeah,
It's like, in the gym analogy for me, it's like, yeah, man, like if I went to the gym and I worked out and I ate healthy, could I get abs? Maybe, possibly, probably, yeah, but what if I tried really hard and did everything and still didn't do it? It's like, what is that identity? So I just go, yeah, man, I could do it. Yeah, whatever. But
yeah,
what holds you back is that anxiety, because if you don't, then what? What's your identity? And so
yeah,
for folks in mental health, it's like if I had this sadness to me and I'm just, man, I'm just sad. I'm just burnt out. Work's fucking crazy. Donald Trump, whatever. But if I actually go see somebody and they tell me something serious, then what? What does that mean for me? Does that mean I can't have these things? Like in the world of absolutes, does that mean all the things I've had mean nothing? And
yeah.
that's a big mountain we start creating in our head.
Man,
And so why am I about to go scale this mountain with shoes and holes in them and no backpack when I could just sit here, even though it kind of sucks, I know it.
yeah, very much so. Very much so. Oh man, that in itself is not just a starting point for people, but that is the obstacle to get them to their next space. Because, like you said, so many times I know there's things that I need to do,
Hmm.
but to have the courage to step out there and push myself forward to get this done is the hurdle. And
And
like you
what are you
said, the
speaking on?
mountain.
And like what are
Yeah,
you speaking on is vulnerability, right?
yeah,
Vulnerability with people, places, and things, right? People think vulnerability is just like, oh man, I love you. Like it's deeper than that, right? And it's really being able to show somebody like the genuine whole you and be validated in that,
mm,
and it's real scary waters when you're navigating that because rejection's a mug, man. Because you're getting a rejection to your identity, this identity that you've built up for years, right? And you call it successful because you feel like you're doing things, and then you expose yourself and someone rejection, you're like, oh my God, what does that mean for me? There's this internalization that starts happening, right? When I'm saying vulnerability helps to get validation, because I think the struggle is we all live in this perfectionistic world in some form of
mm-hmm,
capacity where, based off, culture, race, religion, different levels of pressure to add to that. However, we all have this pressure to perform and succeed, right? And
mm-hmm,
we've come to learn, whether it's like from childhood and growing into your younger years, that like you can only be validated or loved or accepted when you are hitting this very specific you, right? It's
mm,
like I work with a lot of kids who are burnt out from school because they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get a B plus, my parents won't love me, kind of thing. It's like, well, that's not the truth. That's your anxiety kind of putting muscle on it. But
mm-hmm.
how does that impact you, right? That makes you burn out and lose sleep. That makes you, start pushing away from friends and isolating because you feel like they're starting to look at you and see all the things you see at yourself. And it's a really big rub that people come into, man, that you got to be vulnerable and open up and say, I just don't feel great. You know,
I find that people have a harder time being vulnerable with themselves more so than they do with other people, and they don't realize vulnerability is not just an external thing that you give to others, but you have to give that to yourself.
Absolutely. I think the biggest piece about like vulnerability.
one second, my headphones just, yeah, being vulnerable with yourself. I think the biggest piece about that is looking in that mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and loving yourself for the ups and the downs of it. But then also it's about your perspective and approach to it. What are your values, right? What makes you tick? And not values of tangible things of money, cars, clothes, and all that, but like morals and
Yeah,
virtuous values,
intrinsically,
right?
yes.
Intrinsically speaking, like, do you value community? Do you value family? Do you value peace? Do you
Mm-hmm.
value, these things, honesty, integrity? And so when you're met with these hard decisions, you got to be able to recognize that you live in two minds, emotion mind and wise mind, right?
Mm.
Best example I can give you, Chuck, if you and me got in a big ass argument, we say a couple things, whatever, 20 minutes after, most of us are going, I should have said that, or, oh, I should have did this, or I would have won the argument, or should have said whatever, right?
Yeah,
Why is that? Because you can't access that when we were arguing. We were emotionally triggered,
yeah, very much so.
and so we're an emotion mind, and that's not where you think.
Yep.
That's where you feel. And so people get jammed up that they want to get out of that. It's impulsive. They want to self-soothe. And that's where people get, like, for lack of better terms, like getting a substance use, right? Because it's a quick hit and it
Yeah.
self-soothes
Oh,
you, right? And so instead of doing the long work and doing some breathing, giving yourself time to come down off that emotional high, where you
mm,
could access that information you needed after the argument, because that's where your values lie. That's where who you are, your identity lies in the wise mind of things. We get so jammed up in the emotion mind, we get living in the emotion mind, and all we're doing is impulsive, like band-aid on a scar mentality actions. It's not
mm,
done from our values. For example, like, that same kid who isolates from his friends, like, friends are a value for him, but he's isolating from them. Why? Because he's an
mm.
emotion mind. He's impulsively getting away to self-soothe when his values and his wise mind say, I want to go see my people.
Man, you look, you spitting that real, and a lot of it aligns with what I try to present here on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and I ain't gonna lie, it kind of made me wonder if I should have went to school to be a therapist, but I'm like, I
Oh,
ain't want to do all that writing, man.
brother,
That's
you
a
you would you meant to be one, I promise you.
Oh, okay. Well, let's press forward, and I know that there are certain standards and practices that you are held to. So, of course, I'm not asking you about anything specific, but my next question for you is: how would you help a client distinguish between a rough patch and something that is truly in need of a therapeutic intervention? Kind of speak to your methodology
Mm-hmm.
in helping them distinguish between the two, because I think a lot of times, kind of back to what we were talking about earlier with that the cough and taking the
Mm-hmm.
over the counter medicine, but
Yeah.
sometimes the cough may subside for a while.
Yeah.
And you're going about your day, and say 2 weeks later it hits you, and you're like, "Oh, hold on." But you go back to that common practice of wellness and
Mm-hmm.
thinking that may be able to get you over the hump.
Yeah. And I think that's a common thing that a lot of clinicians will get, right? Like, how serious is this? Like, do I need to keep on keeping on, or do we kind of got to change a lot? And I think rough patches come and go. That's life, right? Bad week, occasionally bad month if things is just really like throwing you off. But we're
Yeah.
thinking about, like, is this like a wave, or is this like a tide kind of thing almost? It's like, what's the change going on? Are we talking about, I'm just not feeling great and there's things I can explain going on, like I'm stressed out at work, my relationships, some tangible stuff? Or are we talking about now we're feeling hopelessness, we're feeling some anger, and we can talk about my feelings about anger and how it's not a real emotion. However, I digress. And detachment, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
like really separating from stuff? Are you isolating from things? I think about that, activities of daily living, ADLs. Like, are you brushing your teeth? Are you changing your clothes? Are you washing your hair? Are you showering? Are you eating? An acronym that I preach and I live by is called SEEDS, and stands for sleep, eating, exercise, doctor's orders, and self-care. Right. And
Okay.
the notion is you got to have like a plan in those five things. Like, what's your sleep hygiene? right? Are you getting at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep a day? Are you in bed just doom scrolling on your phone? Or are you actually using your room and creating an environment for restful sleep? Are you waking up on time? Are you struggling to wake up? Like, what is that looking like? Eating, right? Really important. What fuel are you putting in your body, right? It's cliche and it's corny and it's true. Like
Very
you're
much
not,
so. Yes.
you ain't about to be happy living off of gobstoppers and butter noodles out here. You got to be
Boy.
you know you, you got to be out here actually eating something with some some substance. And
Yes.
I ain't saying you got to be perfect, right? You got to do cheat meals. I'm just saying, like, eat some chicken,
Gobstoppers and butter noodles.
brother. Listen,
Well, you wreck in somebody's bathroom.
brother, listen, peeling paint,
Killing paint wood.
But then
Goodness.
and then you get into exercise, right? Like again, we're not Mr. Olympia or whatever, but are you walking? Are you getting that heart pumping a little bit? Are you moving around and not isolating? Right? What's
Yeah.
exercise in your terms? Doctor's orders. If you're on medication, take your medication. Damn it, please take your medication.
Please.
Always
Please.
as your doctor prescribes. You are not smarter than your doctor in this field. I'm sorry. How you feel is valid, and you went to that doctor for a reason.
Yeah.
Dr. Google don't know more than your doctor you're talking to. So, and if you're not on medications, what would a doctor tell you to do? Get some good sleep, eat, exercise. And then my
Yeah.
favorite one, self-care, right? And we're talking about this wellness piece. Like, what is self-care to you? And are you actually doing self-care? Right?
Mm.
Here's a crazy argument is like, self-care can't be playing Call of Duties with the boys all the time. I'm not going to argue with you and say it can't be a form of self-care. I'm saying
Yeah. Yeah.
that shouldn't be in
Shouldn't
which
be the
that,
soul.
that that's
Yeah.
a that's a value, that's a hobby, that's something that fills your bucket. Cool, but like self-care is something that sustains you, right? Some breathing, some intentionality and time, right? Peace, right? That's what we're talking about with self-care. What are you doing to find control,
Mm.
right? Where are you doing to slow things down? Because then if you're doing self-care, oh, I work out, I go to yoga, I go see my friends. That's busy.
Yeah. Very
you
much
know
so.
it's really time that you're showing up for yourself, and it's okay that it doesn't look like this grandiose gesture that's with money and all these things. I'm going to take myself out to dinner. That's great. I love it. I'm not going to hate on it. I'm just saying that not everyone can do that, and so don't define your self-care by other people's standards on social media.
Yeah. I want to say that seeds. I give of myself on this podcast, and I kind of tell and break down who I am. I hate acronyms. I
Hmm.
just I'm a butthole. That's why. But that seeds is very dope. Because people uh, irk my nerve. Oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, fool, you're dead. You're not sleeping. You're just dead. So
Well,
sleep is very important.
brother,
Very important.
I could do a dissertation on sleep, because let me tell you, and I'm to cut me off if I don't get too long on, but like here's the thing with it, like you want to talk about context of being black men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about the need for sleep. When you're triggered and you're stressed, your cortisol levels shoot up, right? Your fight or flight gets triggered and things like that, but also it
Mm-hmm.
weakens your immune system, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get naturally sick. Just from existing on this planet, Chuck. You walk and
Facts.
existing as a black man in America, you will be stressed out, triggered, especially in today's America. So already you trying to do wellness, you're already battling something. Your cortisol levels are shooting off at random times. You're being more prone to being ill and sick, right? And then are we about to go to the doctor? No. Why? Because again, that's another trigger and another thing
Yes.
we don't trust. And so that's when we get into that, like, our metaphor of am I coughing or is this serious? But like that's the same thing. I don't
Yeah.
trust these systems I'm supposed to go to,
Man, let me
yeah.
tell you, for me, um, understanding how important sleep is. So
Hmm.
I suffer from sleep apnea, and for a stretch, um, I was, I had been diagnosed many years ago, but not
Hmm.
really doing the CPAP machine or anything of
The
that
care,
nature,
yeah,
the care.
associated, yeah.
And so there was a stretch of my life, and it actually drove me to go to the doctor regularly. Was I could not drive home from work or
Mm.
to work, uh, primarily from work, without having to stop to get an energy drink, something to eat, something to snack on
To
on
refuel
my
the
drive
tank.
home, because I was falling asleep. I'm talking
Wow.
about sitting at the traffic light
Yep.
and fall asleep. And I got
Yep.
cars behind me blowing the horn or just driving and dozing off. And I was sleeping 2.5 to 3 hours increments every night. If I went to bed at 11, it was like clockwork. Between 1:30 and 2:30, I was going to be up to use the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Lay back down. I was back up 4, 5. At 6:30, my alarm clock's going off
And
to
you got
get
to go
ready to
be a
go to work.
go be a father, go be a husband, go be a black man.
Go be at everything.
Yeah.
And, with my job, I was driving 45 minutes to an hour to work
Yeah.
simply because of traffic. But like, I was like, okay, I have to do something because this is not
Yeah.
right. And sure enough, it was sleep. And so
Yeah.
the first night I used my CPAP machine, the next day when I woke up, and I'm talking about I slept for 7 hours, and I had not slept 7 consecutive hours in such a long time. And it was, I was a new person the
Yep.
next day.
A-
Like, I
As
felt
a
like I
bro,
could leap a tall building in a single bound, boy. It was
bro,
crazy.
and the thing about that, right? That my therapist brain it starts firing off because I'm just like, there's two things to this. You want to look at this from a wellness perspective, right? The wellness is the practice of you using your CPAC machine, doing daily breathing, like whatever your routine is. That's the wellness of it. Now, the therapy of it is, I would say, going to see a therapist be beneficial in that same respect because this is a big part of your life that has changed a lot of things, and it changes the way you engage with the world. Period. It just changes that way. You have to use a CPAC machine to sleep. It comes with labels. It comes with, or shame and guilt, possibly, or just this new identity thing. As a man, it can be hard to express or be vulnerable about. And this is like from a general standpoint, like any man that's
Yeah,
going
yeah.
through this, right? And it's like going from is a safety risk, where you were driving
Big
home and
safety
and
risk.
and something got, thank God nothing happened. However, it's like, as a therapist, I would say, all right, Chuck, like what made you go finally do the right thing? Because you knew it wasn't like you didn't know. It's not your ability. You're not dumb. It was the
Mm-hmm.
barrier, right? Often it's not your ability, it's your barrier. I say that 1,000 times a day. It's not the ability. It's not that you can't do these things. What's the barrier between you doing it? Right. And what's your barrier? It could be shame and guilt. It could be this identity thing. It could be what lies on the other side of accepting this new me. Right. Because I didn't choose this. It kind of chose me in a way, and therapy helps you, like, really lean into that and live a life through that lens now. Because radical acceptance, you can't live a life you want or a life that you choose without utilizing and engaging the CPAC machine for your health. And here's the rub is, yeah, on paper, that's the right thing to do. You're supposed to do that. Why haven't we done it though, right? Because we're not looking at this with that value-based lens. So I would go back to someone in your situation. I say, what's important to you, family, your children, your wife, right? And I would say, when you get into that, should I go to the doctor question? Two things are true because DBT tells us two things can be true at the same time. You don't want to go and you need to go. And we live in this absolute world where we have to commit to one and shun and shame the other one, where I'm like, well, no, you can allow space for both. And it's like, well, which one has more values attached to it for you? Right? Because the one that's you going to that doctor and facing the big ass mountain of anxiety is a lot easier to do. And it doesn't take away the mountain and all. It makes it easier to climb because you're doing it with the value based lens. I'm doing this for my kids. Because here's the thing. Sometimes you can't show up for yourself. That's real. That's just being real. And as a
You know,
father, I'm gonna show up for Aiden.
yeah, yeah. Well, I will say that is very much so the case for many, many people.
Hmm.
But I can be selfish. I'm gonna show up for me.
Oh, listen, and Chuck, that's one of the main things I love about you, brother. But some folks just can't do it because showing up
Oh,
for
I
yourself,
agree. I agree.
because that involves boundaries, right? That
Yeah,
involves setting limits and involves confrontation sometimes. And so that's when we get into people pleasing, right? This person that you want me to be, and there's no way you're doing wellness when you're
yeah,
people pleasing because you're not living in this identity that you're choosing.
very much so. And my turning point, and everybody's turning point is different. But
Hmm.
I was scared.
Yeah.
Like you said, the danger in driving because A little more backstory about myself. I wrecked a car in '04. Yeah, '04. Um, Coming back from a party, I dozed off at the wheel, and my boy who was riding with me was like, "Hey, you falling asleep? You going off the road?" And I snatched the wheel. I woke up going off the road, snatched the wheel, overcompensated. The car spun out and crashed. And so that was more so because I should have stayed. The party was out of town,
Yep.
and I should have stayed there, but I was like, no, I'm getting back home, and
Yep.
I
Hitting
had
that
been up.
road.
Yeah, I had been up since 5:30, 6 o'clock the previous morning with no
Hmm.
sleep,
And
ripping
it
and
wasn't
running.
like you was in a library.
No, no,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Ripping and running. Actually had work that morning, and so
Hmm.
for me, I've always been one who was very conscious of being tired while driving. And
Hmm.
so I had another instance where, like I said, driving and I doze off and I scare myself because I wake up and I'm driving highway. I'm not
Yeah.
even talking about city roads. I'm highway driving to get from work to home. And like you sometimes you can feel yourself falling asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me. And I felt myself falling asleep and woke up in a panic. It was like,
Hmm.
okay, I got to get this fixed. Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
yes, I want to be there for my family, this and the third, but the last thing I want to do is take myself out of here
Yeah. And
in
here's the
this.
thing about it is though, it's like it's not just one thing that you need to know to see yourself in it, right? It's my job as a therapist when I'm inviting these tools and these interventions and these skills, I got to indoctrinate this. I don't, because people come to me and their cup is filled up. They're overwhelmed. They don't have space to start learning this
Mm,
new concept and learning seeds and CBT, DBT, and all this shit, right? So I don't need to do that. I need to start thinking about who is this person? What are they already doing? That's wellness and right, like you said, reframing this and reclaiming this. The easiest example I give folks is, for my religious people, it's like, if you're overwhelmed but you're really attached to God, I'm gonna tell you, you need to do mindfulness. And guess what? You already do it. It's prayer because you're claiming that it's a part of you, it's your identity. You
hmm
already see yourself in it. I'm not going to introduce this, this concept that's foreign to you, and then I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, well we can both agree breathing is important. It's like, yeah, cool, but when push comes to shove, how do you, if you don't see yourself in it, what's tethering you through that to get to that part, right? Like if you're not tethered to this idea because it's your values and your identity, you're not going to do it. I.e., when you're talking about you getting help, yes, obviously self, safety, your own,
Yes.
your own sustainability on this earth and all that. And at the same time, as a therapist, I'm gonna say to you, I know one thing too is you value the role of being a father, being a
hmm
husband, being a brother, right? And it's like when you make these decisions next time to go, well, should I drive? It goes, well, what would brother, husband, dad Chuck do? Versus my emotion me. I want to get home. I'm tired. I just want to get to my spot. That's emotional thoughts. That's
hmm
emotional brain. But if you take a little 20-minute walk to ride the emotional wave, because what comes up will come down, you'll be more centered into that wise mind and you're making decisions that are informed through your identity. Because then you're not met with that shame and guilt of why did I drive, man? I shouldn't have drove. And then now we have possibly a traumatic thing that happens.
Man, I truly say, well, I say this with all sincerity and honesty. I want to know. No, I don't. Maybe I do. I want to know what it feels like to operate from an emotional standpoint because I've never been in that space. Like I've had my emotional moments,
Hmm.
but to truly be operating off of emotion, I you know I that's not who I am,
Yeah.
and I oftentimes, I guess, from a standpoint of better understanding people and better understanding why. Um, kind of, that I want to experience it to understand. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's. Mm-mm.
I,
But
I guess I
anyway,
yeah, I guess I'd ask you too is like, if that's the case, what you're saying is what do you do then when you are in an emotional state? How do you process that? How do you get that off? How do you get that weight off your chest in a way that's actually return on investment?
So for me, it depends on the circumstance, of course, number
Hmm.
one. Um, and then from there, I agree with you. I have my moment and I
Hmm.
sit there and I think, and I'm like, okay, analyze what it is, what's going on. And the number one thing, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And then from there, all right, boom, I'm good.
And,
And
and
it's not worth it.
yeah.
It's,
And you're making that decision from that wise mind, right? That's the
yes.
wise mind decision you're making from all the values that make you you. I'm saying before you even get to thinking, what do you do between feeling the feel and thinking? There's a gap there that there's some emotional work because the emotion does trigger. And so I'm thinking with you, I'm like, all right, either A, you're processing this at like, lightning speed, or B, are we just kind of like going, do I need to deal with this now? If not, I'm putting it to the side, I'll get to it later kind of thing. But
Oh
I guess I'm
no.
asking you, like, how do you go through like that gap of I feel triggered emotionally and then I'm back in this wise mind?
I pause
Yeah.
and I guess it is a pretty quick process, and I think
Yeah.
about it, and then I go from there.
Yeah.
Um,
And, yeah, I guess I take it a step further, which because I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it, but let me just be honest. I think it's more like how do you zoom in on that moment some more to start seeing like more specific things you're doing because then either A, you can apply to other things and grow that, or B, you can start saying, all right, what's the function of this behavior that I'm doing that helps me process, right? And you can start seeing like, okay, what am I trying to get out of this situation? If it's control, is it some validation, and then we can go, oh well, I can get validation more than one way here. I can get control more than one way because a lot of us think that yeah, you do the work to get to that wise mind, but then I need control or validation, but I'm trying to do this one way behavior that I've always learned. But when you're in
well,
wise
I
mind,
think
go ahead.
I was gonna say I think for me, I'm at I've been here for a while, but at a place in life where I don't seek validation outside of myself. I don't need any other validation, and I'm a very calculated person, and
What,
so go ahead.
let me ask you this. I get what you're saying in the sense of I know I'm doing what I got to do. Like I'm hitting those marks, checking those boxes. I guess I'm saying, does it matter to you that your kids think you're a good father?
Say it again.
Does it matter to you that your children think you're a good father?
Yeah, that matters to
Yeah.
me.
So
From
that's what I mean by
Yeah,
validation.
yeah. But see, for me, um, the value of there's a system of hierarchy and value in my life,
Hmm.
and so um, depending on that place of value, kind of dictates how I respond. And so I would say, from an emotional standpoint, um, those emotional aspects that would get a bigger response from me are those areas that are higher value. My wife, my
Yep.
kids, my
Yep.
mother, my grandmother.
Yep.
And
Why
as we
go-
go down,
then you give less of a F.
very very much so. And
And
even
yeah.
even with
And,
them, depending on what it
and,
is.
and you know what? That's healthy as hell, brother. You know why?
Yeah,
That's boundaries and that's flexibility and a growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? Because what you're saying is so true, and I wish more people could do this, is not have a strict hierarchy, but something in that lines of like, people that are that close to me have a certain level of access to me, and people that are far from me only get so much access from me. People do the absolute of one paintbrush color thing where everyone gets the same amount of access, and that's how we get burnt out so quick because we
very
won't
much
hold
so.
boundaries with folks, right? Like I'm sorry, I don't have time for my coworkers because I have to go home and tend to my family. Some people just feel like they have to take every opportunity because the anxiety tells them if they don't, then people don't like them anymore.
Yeah.
However, if you're able, like you said, you get emotional trigger that you can't go to something, and two things are true. I want to go hang out with my coworkers maybe, and I want to go home and be with my family. Which one has more of my values? And I can't make that decision until I get out the emotional mind because I want to do impulse stuff. And impulsive is, let me go the fun stuff. Because sometimes me going home to my family isn't so sexy in the sense of like, yeah, we got to do bath time. Aiden broke his elbow. It's not that I don't love that. You know what I mean? It's just
Hmm.
I need to be able to get out the emotion mind that's just trying to do the impulsive thing and do the values thing. And then I'll be
Yeah.
rewarded for that in the after part of it. It's the long term kind of return on your investment versus that short term like little hit that you're always going to get you need reassurance for.
Very much so. Very much so. So I want us to press forward. That was a very fantastic moment there. But I'm gonna ask you kind of, I would say, lighten it up a little bit. But do you think, from your professional and personal opinion, can wellness practices ever fully replace therapy?
No.
No. Okay.
For the most part, I don't think it can replace. I think it's more of like a tandem thing. I think it's like, is it? I guess it's like they complement each other, right? In a beautiful way. They don't replace it. It's like wellness kind of keeps you moving forward, but I guess like therapy helps you see why you were stuck in the first place.
Got you. So let me ask you this off that question. Um, what do you say to someone that says, "I don't need therapy"?
Period. I
Period.
don't need therapy. I would get real curious and say, well, what is it about therapy you think you don't need? Like how do you identify therapy, and what is it about that identification? Because it's valid. I'm not going to tell you that you don't need it. Like that's your
Hmm.
opinion. I respect that. I'm just going to challenge it and say, well, tell me more. I'm going to zoom in on that. I'm gonna go, okay, well, what is it about therapy? What's your history with therapy? What is your lived experience with therapy that tells you don't need it? If you tell me, oh, I'm not depressed, I would say, okay, I'm like, well, if you, again, our analogy with coughing, like, you kind of, you can't say I'm not having bronchitis, but however, if you're still coughing consistently, you're not curious about that.
Hmm.
And it's like, and why are we talking right now?
Got
Because
you.
it's like you're gonna see if you're talking to me, obviously you reached out to me for as far as professional. If I'm talking personal, then I'm gonna challenge folks and
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like, well,
yeah. I'm more on the personal level. Yeah.
yeah, I would almost say too, somebody is, well, if therapy did work in your life, what would be different? Or what would therapy look like if it did work in a perfect world? And just
Got
to
you.
see what people think therapy should be. And then kind of maybe like rename it and say like, oh, it can look like this though, because therapy doesn't look like a one-way thing. The reason the session I have at 10 o'clock in the morning is not the same session I have at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And now I wanted to ask that question. It's a twofold reason on that. One, because there are people who feel that way, and I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I actually have asked people. My mom is a licensed counselor. My wife is a licensed counselor as
Hmm.
well. And funny enough, in having conversations with them, um, I asked them that question. Do they? How did I frame the question? Do they? No. How do they think I would be in therapy? And, and
Fun.
they told me, but I think my mom was like, "Yeah, you would be trying to therapize the
The
therapist,"
therapist, yes.
and I was
You
like,
would
"Really?"
definitely you would be a make it make sense for me. Like
Yeah,
like
it,
like
it would
like
be
like
interesting.
you would be like if you're just talking about emotions, I need you to make this make sense for me. And
Yeah.
a lot of like what if, well, what if this, if what if that. Like I think he would just challenge, and I don't think he would do it to be like an
That's the
ass.
thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
My mom, both of them was like, you would challenge what they're saying,
Yeah,
and you
and I
would,
want that. I
yeah,
want that in therapy. You know why? Because that means you're in a conversation.
yes,
And it's my job. If I'm decent at my job, I can say enough things for you to at least go, you know what, man, we ain't got to agree on everything. I can agree on these two things. Cool. Let's just do therapy in those two things that we can agree on then.
yeah. I've played with the thought of doing therapy, not from a standpoint, just from a standpoint of seeing
Experience.
how fun of an adventure it would be. Um, yeah. Anyway,
And honest, yeah, we could keep pressing, but therapy can look so different while you're going into it. Because you going into therapy because you're curious about the experience and like what and how you would be in on that side of the chair is no different than somebody who clicked let me call Eric and consult with him because I know I need therapy. You're still coming,
yeah, yeah.
you
For
know.
me, I think it's. I'm trying to think of how can I say this. I think the adventure,
Yeah, I
and
hear what you're saying though. It's just
yeah,
it's being able to see like what is this world about? Because you
not,
like
not so
you
much,
yeah
not so much what
no
it's about. More so, for me, would I? How much of a challenge would I be?
oh you just want to go in there and just stir the pot and just see like how much can you press these boundaries.
Not necessarily because I don't want to go in there to just be a butthole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not
But
disrespectful. It's just
yeah,
saying like,
it's
well,
just
if this
that.
is real, then what's up in this aspect then? And like kind of
Now, I
just
will say this. I will say this. Me saying that I don't believe I need therapy does not mean that I undermine the effectiveness of therapy
oh yeah, no,
because
absolutely not.
and that's for the audience.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
1000% respect. Is why Eric is on the podcast. I respect it. I totally understand what it provides for individuals. Yeah, we're gonna move forward because I could go on and on about this. But as we move forward in integrating therapy and wellness practices, um, kind of give us some best practices, not maybe not specifically, but on a general level of how you would integrate wellness practices with therapy to allow someone to have a stronger mental health foundation.
Yeah, I think, I love speaking in metaphors because I feel like kind of like you said, you don't like acronyms in therapy, and there's tons of it, and it's like it just turns you off from even engaging in it. It's just same like anybody else, right? When I start speaking acronyms and all this jargon, folks are like, ugh, I'm good, right? So from a metaphor standpoint, right, it's like this house, right? I always think of it like a house where like therapy is like that blueprint, the foundation, the structure of it, right? It's solid, it's intentional, if you will. And wellness practices is that daily maintenance, the cleaning, the repairs, making it a space you enjoy, the decor and all that, right? You need both to actually live well there. You can't have one without the other. They go hand in hand, right? Like you can have
Yeah,
a nice crib with all the decor and you have a cracked foundation, right? It looks great for Instagram or whatever, but eventually them walls gonna cave.
and that house gonna slip.
Absolutely. You got shitty
Gotta,
foundation and even the slightest breeze comes by, you a little pig with the hay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm with you 1000%. And those metaphors are spot on, spot on. A weak foundation, no matter how beautiful the house is, no matter how strong you've built it to code and all the other amenities that you've done, that foundation gives way.
Yeah. And
You're
flip side.
SOL.
And flip it on the other side. Let's just say you have an incredibly strong foundation and you've done no wellness, right? No decor. It's kind of a boring crib. It's not you. It's not like this daily wellness and it doesn't look like you, feel like you. So are you really going to this place of filling your cup up and filling your bucket up when you return to this home?
You saying it like that reminds me of several of my apartments in my single days.
Hey, and you know why I look like that? Because we didn't know ourselves then. We was just living there.
Oh no, I knew myself. I just
That was shit.
look, even now, it's like, man, like just to give the audience an idea. Like I had an apartment. I had a 2 bedroom apartment. I had a stand, my TV, a green plastic lawn chair,
And a gaming console.
a Bowflex. No, not a Bowflex. What was it? The workout equipment that Chuck Norris endorsed for so many
Yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah,
I can't even
yeah.
think of the name of it. I had one of those, and I had my bed, which was a box spring and a mattress that was on the floor. That was it.
You were surviving.
No, I was thriving, bro. I was making some of the most money I've ever made in my life. Like I had the money
Oh, I
to
ain't talking about the
have.
money.
No,
That
no, no. I'm
crib.
just saying. But I was like, it was the bare necessities. I didn't need all the extra stuff. For what? For what? But yeah, I think I had 2 chairs just in case somebody wanted to stop by.
Shoot the breeze.
Bruh. But but yeah, the decor I did not have. Oh man, sorry, I went down that rabbit hole that took me back. So from your perspective, provide the people with some of your go to daily, or not necessarily daily, but some of your wellness habits that you would recommend, either to your clients or even someone who may not be in crisis, who just needs something to help them um, implement wellness practices or
Yep.
sustain or alter what they've been doing, because honestly, sometimes those things can get stale.
Yep, they absolutely can. I'm a believer in consistency and routine, and then also throwing a little extra curveball in there. So, for example, Monday through Friday at 12:30 at my job, no matter what's going on, I go for a walk every single time. Doesn't matter if I had a great day, a stressful day, whatever. I do it just in case I need it. And I either am appreciative that I needed it and I provided a space for myself and I love
Yeah.
myself from a different past. It's almost like putting your clothes out before kindergarten type of thing. Or B, I did honestly, it's what it is. It's being a butler for yourself. Or
Hey,
B, I didn't need it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this space and actually appreciate that I'm not stressed out, and I'm just going to take this space for myself and just regulate. So
yeah.
it's like you're able to have space for yourself. So I am a habitual space giver for myself. If I can find 5 minutes, I will. But
Yeah.
12:30 on the dot. One thing I like to do is before I enter and change like my hats, if you will, like going from dropping my child off at daycare and getting on the bus to go to work or returning home or jumping into my private practice work, I'll do a couple deep breaths
Hmm.
and I'll just sit there and I'll just kind of like do a little body scan. Like I'll do what I call push pull dangle in my chair, and I'll you know push my body out the chair for 10 seconds, pull myself into the body or into the chair as much as I can, and just let my arms and legs dangle out my chair for 10 seconds just to get energy out. And the whole mindset about that is I'm not rescuing myself from anything in these moments. I'm just keeping things between a level I know I can be me in. And on a 1 to 10 scale, if you will, I'm very aware of me trying to stay between this 4 and 7, 4 and 8 range, if you will. That's flexibility, right? I don't have to be a five
Hmm.
right in the middle everything school. I can be a little low, I can be a little
Yeah.
high. That's cool and still fluctuate. But me doing those intentional walks, those breathing exercises helps me float things up or down if I need it.
No doubt. No doubt. And I'm glad you elaborated on that push pull dangle, because I was about to
Yeah.
hit you with a citation. That was
Hey, brother,
wild.
that's
It was
that's
wild
why
for a
that's why
second.
hey, that's why as soon as I said I flowed right into explanation. I ain't give you no space. That was a run on sentence.
But I will agree with you. Although I did not do it often, the days when when I did have a job, I'm an independent contractor, but the days where I would go for a brisk walk, maybe even to go pick my food up for lunch, just those endorphins and that blood flow
Hmm.
was a very invigorating moment for me. Even being tired, and you
Yeah.
just you just go for a walk and get that blood flowing,
Yeah.
can make a world of difference, for sure.
And on top of that too is what you're not doing. You're going for your walk. You're not thinking about the work environment you're in that's stressing you out, or that person who won't stay the hell home from work and just coughing next to you. You know what I mean? Like you're
Listen,
distracted. You're naturally distracted because you're outside and people are moving. There's cars, there's birds, there's noises, and you can focus on that. And that's mindfulness.
yeah, and one of my wellness habits. And I've told people this before, and sometimes I've gotten interesting looks or questions about it. But I would drive with my radio off and in complete silence, and
Yep.
that was a moment to decompress.
Yeah.
Several factors in that. Took time to pray. Number
Yep.
one, also allowing me to analyze the activities of the day.
Hmm.
I don't want to bring work home.
Yes. Yep.
And
Why?
I learned that
Yep.
many
Yep.
years ago. I was working remote back in 2014, 2015, well before the Zoom days and the commonality of it now. And I was working well past my work time. And what really um, was a aha moment or eye opening moment for me is I was working in the insurance industry, and I sent an email out, and it was like at 10 o'clock at night. And so the next day, in my mind, I'm getting ahead of work and I'm,
Hmm.
getting caught up.
Hmm.
Man, the next day, the agent reached out to me and responded to the email. I was like, man, why are you sending emails at 10 o'clock at night and you're at home? What's wrong with you? And
Hmm.
because we just had that kind of rapport with each other. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, you know what? why am I sending this email? Because I'm still feeling the next day. I still feel like I'm behind. I still feel like I'm
Hmm.
trying to catch up.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the wife was looking at me side eye because she was like,
Hmm.
"I'm not fooling with you. I'm going to bed."
Yeah.
And so,
Expectations.
yeah, and so from that point forward, I had always put in my mind, no matter what, when I walked out of the door or when
Hmm.
I cut off my time for work, it's cut. And
And
so that drive and that moment to be to myself
yeah.
allowed me to be
Hmm.
able to show up when I got home because I was not carrying
Hmm.
all of that mess through the
Hmm.
door and having to respond to my loved ones
In a
according
way.
to that mess.
Yes.
I gave them me when I came through the door, not
And that
me and work.
and that right there, like if you could bottle it and sell it, you'll be worth $1 billion because you hit on everything we just talked about, right? We talked about this vulnerability piece with yourself, with God, right? To know that you need this space for yourself. And then also we talked about this value aligned behavior, right? You said it so great. You're like, I don't want to be this person for my kids, right? Because I love them and it matters, and it matters to me that I'm a good father, and that's a part of the puzzle, and that reinforces why the moments of peace is important. Because maybe some days it doesn't feel like you need it or whatever, because your mood's off and this is bullshit. But when you're able to look at it of like, I don't want to be somebody I'm not to my kids, that makes you sitting there and going through it worth it because you're working against your mood at that point.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's what you're saying, like, to have boundaries, right? Like that's the big piece, especially with work, right? You want to talk about burnout and burning the candles at both ends.
Whew,
And
yes, sir.
and here's the thing that we're talking about, this preferred identity thing, right? You're talking about a preferred identity of being Chuck, the husband, the dad, and then this perfect perfectionistic kind of thing we talked to earlier of like, I don't want to say it's people pleasing, but for lack of argument, we'll call it people pleasing of like, I want to get this work done and be a good worker and I want to have ease at work the next day. And we radically can accept that's never going to happen, right? But we're chasing it's that
Yeah,
carrot.
yeah,
It's that,
yeah,
or it's that metaphoric, meat and the dog just, or not meat, Jesus pause. It's that steak and the dog's chasing it,
yeah. Well,
right?
the carrot in
And
front of the donkey.
yeah,
Yeah,
carrot in front of the donkey. And that's kind of what it is. And you run yourself dry versus preferred identity is me turning this laptop off or me doing those acts of resistance, if you will, that you're doing because it allows me to be a whole me, a whole dad, a whole husband, a whole Charles Chuck. And that's what matters to me. And that's when that's when you can see yourself in the action of that piece because of all those things. That's how you can see yourself in it versus we don't ever do value work and you don't ever connect that because then when it gets hard, you don't have anything tethering you to that wellness practice because it's
yeah.
easy to do it when things are easy.
Very much so.
But when
Very
it's
much so.
hard, what tethers you to it? What walks you through it? And there's a woman I work with that has pretty solid depression, and she's kind of like, "Is this forever? Is this going to pass on to my kid?" I'm like, "That's one way you can look at it. That's valid." Or here's another truth of, I'm learning, I'm getting better at harder now for my kids.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And that's what's able to keep people hanging on and getting through things because it's about riding the wave of this and learning like I can get through these episodes. It's the metaphor of like if I just told someone to do push-ups, they might get to like 20 and be like, "All right, man, how many I got left?" Versus if I said, "Hey, give me 30 push-ups," and at 20, you're like, "Oh my God, I'm still feeling, tired." This thing, your body is still gonna feel tired, but your motivation is different because you got 10 left.
yeah. Very
So
much
that's
so.
the whole thing with your depressive and anxious episodes. You kind of have to sit in the shittiness of it to learn how many push-ups you got to do because people
So,
bail out before they do it.
so in that, and that's a perfect area for me to segue to my next question for you. We just touched on someone who already has practices in of wellness habits. What is your suggestion for someone who is intimidated by therapy, but they want to go, they know they need it, but they are
Scary.
hesitant.
Yeah. It's scary because they don't know what it is, right? It's like what's behind what is this therapy thing? And the only thing I have is social media and whatever. I'd say book a consultation because those things are free. You get
Mm.
15-minute conversation. Most, if not all, good therapists will give you a free 15, 20-minute consultation. And in
Oh
that
man,
consultation, you can ask any question you want. When I do my consultations, I tell any prospective client, I say, I want you to ask every single question that's on your mind that you think that might be helpful. And it's not a dumb question because you're investing in here. You need to know what you're getting out of this and what this is supposed to
Hmm.
be, and you deserve to know that. And that's how you connect to therapy, because again, you're able to get your questions answered and see yourself in therapy, so that when you're tired and you don't want to do therapy, you see the reason why you go. And you just tell people, just engage with it lightly. It's the absolute, right? Because I'm saying I want to do therapy, it means I'm committing that something's wrong with me. I'm committing all this money. I ain't got all. You have time for 15 minutes and then make a decision, because you're marrying future thoughts that may not even exist after you have 15 minutes with a therapist.
You know what? That is an amazing aspect to help someone. 'Cause first and foremost, free. Free is gonna
Free. That's a big.
free.
That's a real thing. It's got to be.
Yeah, very
It's
much
so
so.
hard to access affordable therapy.
Yeah. And so when you get that 15, 20 minutes free, and essentially you've flip that switch for them.
Hmm.
And once you flip that switch, so that's dope. That's definitely a great method and a great practice to allow someone to warm up to it and
Yeah.
have that big first step.
And date a therapist in a sense, right? Like, just to see if you can even
Yeah,
talk to this person, because
yeah, speed
it's not like
dating.
the yeah, it really is, because the concepts I'm teaching that you and me talked about is not rocket science. We talked about breathing, we talked about boundary, you know what I mean? Like, nothing hard. The hard part is actually doing it. So you have to have someone you can actually hear it from,
Yeah.
that looks like you, speaks like you, whatever that, right? Then you think about cultural competency, and that's another barrier between people of color and therapy, is there not too many clinicians of color, because I'm not trying to explain to you my culture.
Hmm. Gotcha. And you mentioned social media not too long ago.
Yeah.
From your perspective, how has social media shaped the way we talk about mental wellness, for the better and for the worse?
I honestly think that it definitely is both, right? I think that, we think of celebrities have been more upfront about any mental illnesses they've had, and it's allowed people's space to be validated and normalized, right? Where I remember 15 years ago, I found out my cousin had depression. I was like, oh my God, is she going to die? Like, it was almost, the stigma around it was so heavy
Yeah,
about like
yeah.
depression. And now we've moved to a world where, hey, guess what? We all experience levels of depression and anxiety on some level. That's just the human nature of it. And we've come to agree with that, with a little bit more education and a little bit more normalization from people with platforms. And I think now we're even getting there with like autism spectrum disorder too, and like neurodivergence. And it helps create this community for folks to feel normalized and accepted and validated. And on the flip side, too much of a good thing can be bad for you. I think that, you can overdiagnose yourself, you can misdiagnose yourself. It's fickle in the sense of, you know, I'm all about people seeking out information to understand themselves in a way. Like, for some folks, a
Yes.
diagnosis can be very freeing and explain a lot of things. And for some people, it can create a box of like, oh, I'm OCD, so I just don't do these things. I can't stand. I'm sorry, I can't stand it. Like,
No,
people.
no, I laugh because I actually had this conversation or a similar conversation to this with a medical professional. I want to say it was a nurse. Was it a nurse practitioner or a doctor? Um, I'm trying to remember, but it was very much in line with this, where they were like, it was a doctor, and they were referencing how the access to information has made their job a lot more difficult because people have come in
Mhm.
for appointments and they self-diagnosed. So
Yeah.
when the doctor who has gone through all this
Hmm.
schooling, who's
Yep.
going through all this continuing ed, and who does this for a living,
Yeah.
gives you a prognosis and a diagnosis, and it does not line up with what WebMD told you or what Google told you or Chat GPT told you,
Lord have
you're
mercy.
giving them pushback.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, it's great to have information, but you don't know what you're talking about. First off, because you're inputting things into these systems or waiting a result, and just because you put in one singular thing, you did not add the factor of you have this one thing compounded with this thing, and your, hemoglobin levels are elevated to this, which flips it from what
Yeah.
WebMD told you to
Yep.
a whole nother prognosis. And
Yeah.
so, you all across the board, the therapists, the doctors, I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure the orthodontist and the dentist,
Yeah, any
um,
clinician, brother.
yeah, any clinician is encountering this because we have so much access to
Yeah.
information. And, you have your TikTok videos, you have your
Hmm.
YouTube University, and these folks
Yeah.
are coming in trying to tell you what's wrong with them instead of them coming in telling you the ailments that they're dealing with, and
Hmm.
then going
We
from
tease
there
it
to
out.
come up.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that, yeah, it is funny. Like, I literally, that conversation happened within the last month.
Man,
Um,
every day, not every day, excuse me, but like I can't tell you, like, weekly, I'll have this battle with patients and just saying like, oh, it's this. I'm like, well, how do you know? What informs that? And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, right? Because I mean, my whole goal is to keep our conversation going and get this rapport building to reflect things, right? And have this sense of community catharsis convo. And so I'm just like, well, what's informing you? Oh, well, TikTok's on me. Okay, that's cool. All right, well, then what do you think we should do? I'm just going to start asking, like, you're the clinician then. What do you think we should do? And then eventually I'm say, well, why are we here then? Because here's my thing is like, it's not disrespectful and it is at the same time because I'm like, well, you're here and then you're telling me I'm wrong.
yeah,
And I'm not saying no one needs to be right or wrong. Let's just have a conversation about two things can be right, you know,
yeah,
and let's just see which one gives you more juice out the squeeze, if you will,
yeah, very much so.
and it's like, what does this allow for you, right? What are you attaching yourself to this identity? What is this allowing for you? And really teasing that back and zooming out and going, okay, then if every behavior has a function, what are you seeking then? Because we don't have to do it through labels lens. We can go through a values lens. And like if you're seeking comfort, if you're seeking validation, and this label of a diagnosis makes people have sympathy for you or makes people validate you. Is that true validation? Right. And really asking
Mm,
people like, do you want them to validate your diagnosis or validate your identity?
mm,
Because those things are not the same. You are not your problems.
big facts.
People want to
Big
do that though
facts.
because no one
Yeah,
knows how to
yeah.
deal with it, and so we just go, okay, like you're good, it's all good, and those are defense mechanisms that get you nowhere fast. It
You
just
may be
perpetuates and
you
kicks the can.
you may be causing your problems, but you are not your
Yeah,
problems.
yeah. I mean, look, it's just like that's a part of you. There's more to you than just anxiety, depression, and mood, and all these diagnoses. Like you're someone who likes sports, maybe, or you're a like those are things that we need to start looking at. Like, how
Yes.
are those things impacted by this? Because that's who you are. This diagnosis is not an identity. However,
Definitely.
TikTok will tell you it is, and that's my big rub with it. Like for
Woo.
men, for boys, young men, and even men in general, just like they go to these TikTok channels where they're like, oh, lone wolf, and women don't understand you, and all that. I'm just like, this is a load of crap to me, because
But
it's because
but they grew up in a single parent household with the mother.
yeah, yeah, right. They're like women ain't this and this, that, and the third. I'm like, you just suck at being vulnerable and you're scared. And they tell you like anger is, this respect thing is so riddled in anger. And I'm like, well, peel back anger because it's not real. Anger is not
Yeah.
a real emotion. It's a product of fear and sadness. You're scared no one's gonna love you, and you're sad. You know what I mean? Like that's what it
Woo.
is. It's like
Woo.
you're scared no one's gonna accept you that you have feelings,
Yes.
right? And it's very sad you feel alone, right? And you're sad because you're living a life that you don't want to, maybe. And that's what it really is. And you're not going to tell nobody that you're scared or sad as a man, let alone black man. And that's a deeper dive. And it's just like, what's the space for men to be able to be vulnerable and be validated that you are allowed to be a little sad and a little scared, because then you learn how to show up differently in the world. And these videos of dudes saying, oh, the wolf thing, and there's strong, this whole little characterization, right, is just crazy to me, because it's everything that I just said is anti that, and that's how you get these bro ass dudes like these horrible ass Andrew Tates that come in, because they just speak straight to these lost
Mm-hmm.
ass men,
Yeah.
mostly white men. However, but it's just like, you need to take control. You need to assert your dominance. It's like, no, you need to communicate. You need to feel some damn emotions.
Big facts. But and leading into that, I want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest lie the internet tells us about mental health?
Ooh, there's a lot of them joints. I want to say like it's almost like that you can like manifest your way out of trauma, but without doing like the messy work. Like you can just
Oh,
manifest and
hold on. You just stepped on a bunch of people's toes, bro.
if a hit dog holler, maybe you should turn the volume up. I don't know.
Ooh, you
I'm
cannot
like,
manifest yourself out of the mess if you have not done the work.
then
Ooh, sit on
the
that.
my mentor told me this analogy about trauma in general. Like, if you had this glass of water and it's like urine water, if you say, like, if I put urine in it, like, and I tell you to drink it, it's like, oh, I'm not drinking. It's horrible for me. Doesn't matter how much fucking sugar, sorry, doesn't matter how much sugar I put in it. It's still going to be
Hmm.
water you're not drinking. Say with trauma is like, no, all this good stuff you want to do is not going to drive out this bad, this horrible part. You have to tend to it and remove it out of the water. But people want
Man,
to manifest and say it's just lemonade. It's just it's juice. Like it's going to be juice one day, and you're not doing no intentional work. No, it's not. And
and
then
you
and
know,
and then 5 years later, you're wondering why you're sick.
and that's okay. I'm gonna say I don't care. That's my issue with affirmations.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I recognize and it is important, but
Yeah.
to
And
sit there and just say it over and over, and I've mentioned this on the pod
mhm.
before, but you put no action behind it, it's just void words.
I mean, I'm not the most religious man, but like, what's prayer without work? You know what I mean? Like
Faith without works is
thank you.
dead.
And it's the same exact thing. These affirmations is the
Yeah,
same realm. Like you
yeah,
just want to say all these things. There's no action behind it. It's like, what's the function of it then? The
yeah.
function of these affirmations is supposed to open up space for you to do something. Like you're supposed to swap out this space with something intentional that's value aligned to the affirmation. But people are just going up there and writing on their mirror like you're this person and you're going to kill it today, and then you go sit back out in bed.
Hmm.
That's the whole butler for yourself thing. That's what affirmations are supposed to be. It's supposed to be your wise mind talking to your emotional mind.
Yeah,
Because you can't show up for yourself in that moment, but your previous self could. And if you're not doing that, these affirmations are just words that you think are cute because it was on Instagram and somebody took it and got a million likes.
your Instagram captions do nothing for you.
They enable, if you want to be real.
Ooh, that,
Because then you get in these communities and these threads where people are just enabling each other. Like, yeah, you go ahead. And I don't think it's not bad to have community. I think it's bad that they're not challenging you, holding you accountable.
facts.
You know what I mean? If I'm telling you that my health is out of whack and I need to get to the gym and eat healthier, and I'm just getting up every day saying I'm gonna be healthy, and my community's not saying, yo, did you get to the gym? Yo, you need to put down that Wendy's G, like that. There's nothing happening there. I'm just continuing to eat horrible food, and no one and everyone's just enabling me with like you're doing great. Because again, I'm not being vulnerable with my community and saying that I'm not.
Yeah, very
Because
much so.
vulnerability, right? Because if I'm vulnerable and I say that I'm not following through on this plan, then what does that mean? Are my people that like me so much when I'm happy and things are going great, are they going to go away?
Putting that mirror in front of you.
I'm not going to lose I won't lose my social circle because if I ain't got that, I ain't got nothing. When
Mm,
you never, when you're talking to that, like you had something to begin with in that part.
you preaching, boy. You preaching,
It's like, how do you see
preaching.
yourself in these affirmations? How do you see yourself in it? What are your values when you say these affirmations that you connect with? It's not just saying it because it's the good thing to say, because when things are hard, you're not going
Hmm.
to do it.
All right, I got another question for you. We got a few more questions, and we're gonna wrap this up. This has been amazing, man. Um, what's one piece of advice that makes therapists cringe when they hear it or read it online?
Mhm. Oh, here's one. Cut off anyone who stresses you out or something like that, right? Like the whole cut off everybody. It's so absolute, man. Relationships take work. The hell? Like, stress isn't always a sign you need to run. Stress is a sign that it's challenging.
And maybe you're the problem.
And maybe, or maybe you're the common denominator, and that takes
You're
some
the common
vulnerability.
denominator. Yes.
Be vulnerable and tell somebody maybe I got some stuff to me.
Yes.
The old acronym or not acronym, the old metaphor, like when we point our fingers, there's three pointing back at ourselves for a reason.
Yep.
And
Uh,
people won't do that, but do that intentional work is hard because it requires change. And who am
yes.
I to tell you as a grown up, hey, you got to change some poor things about yourself, or who am I as an adult to realize that and accept that?
Big facts. So let me ask you this. What's one uncomfortable truth about therapy most people don't want to hear?
Um, Therapy only works when you do it outside the room and not in the session.
Ooh, that's big.
You can
That's
come,
a big
yeah,
statement. Big
yeah.
statement.
I'll zoom in on it. It's if you come into my therapy room in my office and you're all about this vulnerability and accountability, and I got to do all these things, but you go home and do the same stuff expecting for results. What are we talking about here? You know,
Insanity.
exactly. We're checking off a box, an empty box, right? So part of the game is you got to do the work outside. Because me as a therapist, I want to know how the real life stuff's going. Because you can come dressed all up as you want and put your makeup on or put your suit on and dress up and look this part of success. And I can only take you for your word. And if you're not doing the work outside of therapy, then you're just cheating yourself. I'm the money's coming. I mean, look,
I appreciate
two things are true.
it.
I appreciate the money and I hate that you're not showing up for yourself because I am not going to
Yeah.
work harder than you for your own mental health.
Oh man, that's big, and that is something that carries over in every aspect of life.
Yeah,
We operate on the notion of proper preparation prevents a piss poor performance,
absolutely.
and in Eric saying that you got to put it to practice. Simple. It's no different than um, your walk with in your
Yeah,
religion,
yeah,
Christianity,
exactly.
Islam, no matter what it is.
If you
If
only, when you
you're
go
not
to
putting it to
service,
practice, yeah,
right? If you're only a
you
Christian when Sunday comes,
you, you
can you call
you only a
yourself?
Christian. You only a Christian while you in between those walls.
You know
But
what I mean?
just as soon as you hit the parking lot, somebody getting cussed out.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I'm saying. But that's how a lot of people live, right? It's all performance and politics.
Yes,
Because we feel, again, the main point is this perfectionism thing of we have to carry this identity of success, and that's the only reason we're allowed to receive love. And so that's why we get caught up in this tangible things, these cars, these demonstrations of wealth or success, when it's, what does it profit you to gain the world, lose your soul kind of thing, right? Like you're out here chasing
ooh,
all these tangible things and ignoring your values. And then, to not put names or labels on, but somebody that I know close is going through a very tough time. And I really told this person, like, you really need to sit down and figure out who you are in this new avenue of your life. And they're
yeah.
scrambling to get themselves this big house. And, they said, like, this is my peace. This is my peace. I'm like, no, it's not. Because once you get
It's about
this
to be your
place,
stress.
once you get to this place and you sit in this home that you've worked so hard and, you scramble for, you're still going to feel empty.
Yeah,
And then what? And then what do we do? Because you did the whole showing of it, and you still don't. You still feel empty inside because you profited all this stuff. And you didn't gain none of your, lost your whole soul.
man.
And that's when you
Whoa,
need
boy,
therapy.
boy.
And that's when you need therapy. That's beyond wellness. Might be beyond me.
Hey, hey. So we. I'm sorry. That's so real though. That is so real. You look for um, these things and you get it, and you still feel empty. You
There ain't no
still
values to
feel
it. You ain't attached that
yeah,
values wise.
yeah. So with this, couple of more questions, and we're gonna wrap this up. If you could give people one sentence to remember about the difference between mental wellness and therapy, one simple sentence, what would it be?
One simple sentence between wellness and therapy.
And I think
I
you kind of gave it earlier.
Like the
Um,
home with the house, like
yeah,
it's yeah, it's definitely like, you got your structure, things that are solid in your identity, right? We're talking about that change work versus sustain work, right? Like that's the biggest difference. One is about changing your identity, and the other one is maintaining that identity.
yeah.
And
So,
that's important to both, because if you're just doing maintenance work, what do you maintain? What identity are you actually maintaining? Is that identity that actually helps you? And if you're
mhm,
just doing therapy, with no wellness practices, that's that same analogy. You're not doing work outside the therapy room.
yeah, that's perfect. Maintenance work versus sustain work. So y'all hear that, right? Do your sustainability work, but you also got to maintain that thing. All right, my final question for you, my good brother. What's a question you wish more people asked about their mental health?
what's one question I wish more people asked about their mental health? I think it's, what's the cost of me staying the same?
Ooh,
Right? Like,
that's big.
what does it cost me to remain this person? And is that worth it?
That's big.
You know what I
I
mean?
like
Because
that.
if you're in some places that you know isn't right, it's like, what is that costing you? It could cost you a lot of things, whether you know it or not, right? Like, there's definitely things going on that you're not feeling connected to make you think about mental health, and that's when you got to go, well, what's the cost risk of me not changing and staying the same? What can I expect? And is that something I can connect to?
That is very something that is a driving factor in my life, and I take it from economics and I applied it to life, and that's opportunity cost.
Yep.
And for those who don't know, because looking at some of your online posts, I can tell who failed economics. I could tell who barely sustained the economics and just got through, and I could tell who know what the heck they're talking about. But
Hmm.
opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other
Hmm.
alternatives when one alternative is chosen.
Yeah.
And in that, just speaking to what you're saying, is it worth it?
Hmm.
What opportunity cost do you have here in making this decision to stay this way,
Hmm.
which you have many different factors and different instances that show you staying this way has not done anything beneficial for you.
Hmm.
So what is it to you to try something else that could
And
potentially
yep.
be beneficial?
Right. And the next step of that is like, how do you see yourself in that? Because again, it's about tethering yourself to that. Because a lot of people, it's not that they don't know that they're in a bad spot. They just can't connect to enough that change to make it worth the work.
Man, that's it. Make it worth the work.
Hmm.
You know, that might have to be the episode's title. Make it worth the work.
Hmm.
Well,
Absolutely.
with that, we're gonna wrap up this episode. I want to say this has been, and we could continue on and on,
Hmm.
but this has been fantastic. And of course, this will not be the last time you hear this brother with the Encompass podcast. When we come together and form our collective like Voltron, the LXI,
Yes, sir.
you will hear from my brother again, but I want to thank you for carving out some time to chop it up with me so that we can provide this information to my listeners and to the people. Before we go, is there any one last thing that you want to bestow upon the people?
Man, I just appreciate being in a space to share mental wellness with people, and I just really encourage everyone here. If you could do anything for yourself tomorrow, find yourself 15 minutes to take a walk and start there.
I love it. Not only will it help your head space, but it can help your body space. So with that, as we always end our podcast, may the Lord watch between me and thee. And remember, if nobody loves you, Tupac loves you, and Jesus does too. Be blessed.